So a friend of mine recently, asked me a question. He said that he was watching a video of, our friends, some of our pro-Palestine friends rioting in different places in Europe and in America. And he asked a question like, with all the stuff that, the Christian world has given to them, to Arabs, to Muslims, in order to, so to speak, for them to live in a civilized way, he goes, wouldn't you think that they'd be grateful, that the Arabs and the Muslims would be grateful for these things? Instead of rioting, instead of burning, you go to like France and England and all that kind of stuff, and even here in America, rioting, burning police cars and burning shops and all the rest of it, destroying things basically. Wouldn't you think that they would just want to live in peace? And I said to my friend, you need to understand something. First of all, in Islam, there's a rule. In the Quran, there's a rule that whatever land Islam ever conquers in history, it doesn't matter if the original inhabitants reconquer it. It doesn't matter. It remains Islamic. That land belongs to Islam forever and ever, whatever they conquer. Doesn't matter if the Martians come, or if they conquer Mars and the Martians reconquer Mars, Mars remains Islamic. On top of that, guys, it is a big, busha in Hebrew, as we say, embarrassment, shame, for Muslims to be ruled by infidels. Anybody who doesn't believe in Islam, whether they be Christian or Jewish or whoever else, Buddhist, whoever else, anybody, Hindus. And so, now you go over to Israel, right? It's what's happening in Israel now. The Jews came back. And now the Jews, not only the Jews reconquered their land, and it's still in the minds of a Muslim, the land of Israel is theirs, or what they call Palestine. It's the worst thing in the world that they are being ruled over by Jews. I mean, they have it nice in Israel, the 2 million, actually it's more, even the ones that live in Judea and Samaria, who are technically under the PA, but in reality they're being ruled by us, right? We're not doing to them what they would do to us if they were to rule over us, and we've seen how they rule over us, right? But still, whatever is the case, whatever is the status, it's literally a fate for them. It's a fate worse than death, to the point where they're willing to send their kids to die to reverse that faith, that fate. Because it's literally a fate worse than death. And you see, guys, on top of that, you go to Western countries, I think demographers say that the minute, there's a critical mass, let's say 10% of the population is Muslim, now you have a totally different situation on your hands, right? Now they can come and they can scream and they can, prior to that, they were doing what's called creeping Sharia, right? They were just doing demographic creeping. Cultural, demographic, slowly. They know that they cannot conquer the Western world militarily. They can't do it. They can't do it like they could do it before. So they got to do it via demography. And they've been doing it slowly for the past 20 years, 25 years. We've seen it, right? Anybody who's been watching this. most people in the West haven't been paying attention. They're like, oh, well, what's your problem? Why are you, what is it, Islamophobic? Even now, guys, you see, Israel gets attacked. Oh, we have to worry about Islamophobia in America. Settler violence and Islamophobia, right? So we understand what's going on. But yeah, guys, this is a fate worse than death. Because how can an infidel rule over Muslims, especially Jews? This is terrible. On top of that, guys, it actually is the fact that we've come back to Jerusalem, to Judea and Samaria, a supposedly cursed people with no land. Guys, I was talking to some folks who are in Dagestan, Russian-speaking Muslims in the former Soviet republics, the southern republics, of Dagestan, Chechnya, all the rest of it, on my Instagram, and every other person you heard say, you guys are a people, you guys are a cursed nation without a land, cursed people without a land. These guys believe that we are literally cursed and that we don't have a land. And so how could it be that a cursed people without a land, God supposedly allowed them to come back to the land and reconquer the land from us, no less, from all of our 5 armies. Folks, they cannot accept this. This is first of all, they can't accept it on a personal level, but also it's a threat to their entire theology. They're thinking to themselves, well, wait a minute, if the Quran is kind of like God's last word, the most updated, so to speak, version, of the software, and everything else is BS, and, it must be the truth, then how could it be that these cursed people without a land came back to their land? Even though the Quran says also that the land belongs to them, but let's set that aside for a second. We're supposedly, in other places it says we're cursed people without a land. So, it can't be. It negates our entire theology. Folks, their heads are about to explode. Theologically speaking. And maybe literally. So my friends, I guess to give my friend the answer, and maybe some of you have been wondering the answer, the fact that Jews are back in Jerusalem, the fact that Jews are learning Torah, the fact that Jews are building things again that is literally like fulfillment of prophecy, the fact that Jews have come back to, plant vineyards, which the Tanakh talks about, all the prophets, they acknowledge the prophets, even the ones in the Tanakh. They have different names to them, but they acknowledge them. Folks, this is a big problem for them. Christianity, guys, had to come to grips with this in the 60s and 70s when we came back to Jerusalem. And it did. They had this replacement theology stuff going on as well. They thought they were the chosen people. But they came to grips with it. Folks, Islam, hurts, not exactly. It's a big problem for them. So, in their eyes, it's either them or us. It really is either them or us. And they, guys, again, you ever walk around Israel and you look at the faces of Arabs, even the ones who have nice lives in Israel, they look like they are, somebody killed their puppy. Why? Because, folks, they are like they feel as if they're dead. They're walking around Jerusalem, other parts of Israel. They're living their lives, but they look as if they're dead. Why? It's a big busha. It's a big embarrassment. It's a knock on their pride that the Jew is like, I can't even say ruling over them. If we were ruling over them, their lives would be much worse. But we're not really ruling over them. We're allowing them to stay, a lot of them to stay in our country after we, beat them in 2 wars of self-defense. And allowing them to be in the Knesset, 10 of them or 15 of them, at any given time, there's like 10% of the parliament is full of Arabs. Literal enemies. We're allowing them to do this. But folks, this is a big embarrassment. And so they would rather, wreak havoc wherever they are. They would rather send their kids to die to mitigate or to completely, I guess, remove a fate that is worse than death, which is what? Being ruled over by infidels. And so, my friends, you know, people say this is a war about land. I mean, land is involved, but in reality, this is a theological situation, folks. This is a theological situation. This is driving them crazy. And then, of course, you get into the dynamics of Iran, you know, Sunnis and Shiites, but that's already kind of like, you know, I don't say semantics, but you know what I mean. These are the different machinations that are happening inside this theological thing. And you guys might come and say, well, that's silly, right? Isn't it so silly that we're having a war over theology? No, it's actually not silly, folks. It's not silly. It's actually not silly. This is some real stuff, guys. We're fighting over a holy land. It was given to us by Hashem. The whole world, in reality, knows this. Even they themselves know this. The Muslims know this. But it's like a little kid, you know, who can't, you know, we're cousins, right? And he can't get over the fact that his cousin, or well, it's really his brother, Ishmael and Isaac, that his brother, his little brother, and God gave his little brother the land. He can't, he's like, it's mine, but it's mine, I want it. Folks, you see like the Temple Mount, right? They didn't want anything to do with the Temple Mount until we came back and claimed it. Now they want it. Now it's theirs. They don't care about the Temple Mount. They care about Mecca and Medina, and then there's a few other, you know, other places in the Middle East. They don't care about the Temple Mount, guys. They only care about the Temple Mount as soon as we started expressing any kind of concern about the Temple Mount. So, my friends, this really is driving them up the wall. They can't come to grips with it. But in reality, guys, like I said before, it's our own fault. Because you know what? We won the war in 67, Six-Day War. You know, we went from being a nation that announced on our intercoms, army intercoms, you know, the Temple Mount is in our hands, and now we don't even allow our own people to say Shema Israel on the Temple Mount, or pray, or say anything. Say Psalms. It's our own fault, guys. On top of that, we took back Judea and Samaria, and then, you know, the Arabs themselves, at that time, thought to themselves, well, what would we do in this situation to them? We'd kick them all out. Did we do that? No, we didn't at that time. I told you guys before. My parents have non-Jewish friends who told them, you know, they were in Russia, in Moscow, and all the Soviet citizens were like surprised that Israel won the war. And a lot of people were thinking, you know, if the Jews would have, after that war was won, would have kicked out all the Arabs to their respective lands, and they do have respective lands, all these different so-called Palestinians, nobody would have said anything to us. No one would have said anything to us. Now it's too late. Now you played this whole game of like, maybe we are, maybe we're not, maybe it's ours, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Obviously it's deliberate. We know our government did this deliberately, but now we can't do that. And so, my friends, you know, these guys think that we're imposters because of our behavior over the last 50 years, 50 some odd years, 55, 56. And we know that we're not. And so now we have to figure out very, very quickly. And it's something I told to a friend of mine. He was asking me about the protests on campuses, and I said, listen, man, these people are coming to say that we're not the owners of the land. We have to figure out very quickly who we are, that we are in fact the owners of the land. What land are we the owners of? And as soon as we figure that out, we come to grips with that, we have to announce it to the world. And the minute we announce it to the world, the minute we tell the world, hey, this entire land is ours, including Judea and Samaria, including Gaza. Why? Because the Torah said so, because Hashem gave it to us. And just keep repeating that over and over. Just like Arafat kept repeating lies and the world started, you know, eventually believed him. We have to keep repeating the truth that we know to be the truth from the Torah, according to Hashem. And the world is going to get it through their skulls. Believe me, guys, they will. As long as we keep saying the truth. But if some of us are saying, I don't know. Other people are saying, yes, no, maybe so. Or yes, but here's some land and, you know, let's have peace. Folks, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in any facet of anything normal in life, right? And so, on the one hand, these guys are coming and claiming that we're not, this is not our land. We're not we're imposters, we're occupiers, we're colonizers. But it is driving them crazy theologically that we did in fact come back and that we're there, guys. It is driving them up the wall. And this is precisely why, guys, they cannot sit still. They must protest, they must do all these things. And they're not going to be grateful to Christians or Jews for civilizing their country or wherever they live. They're not going to be grateful for that. That's the ultimate embarrassment. Shame. There's nothing, folks. These guys would live on the street in a box instead of living in a civilized place with the shame of losing or thinking that they've lost and being supplanted, so to speak. That's it, guys. Now you understand what we're dealing with here, who we're dealing with here. And the minute you understand that is the minute we can act accordingly and we'll succeed. All right, guys. I'll catch you later.